He who fight with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster. And when you gaze long into the abyss also gazes into you.
Hello, my friends! Today, I would like to show you a story. It was the good old days of wizards, coasts, dungeons, and most importantly, dragons. Our hero was one of a race of unshakable beings, the dwarves. No one knows his face. It has been lost for centuries, so let us assume that he looked like this. Dwarves are short and stocky, easily identifiable by their size and shape. They are given to hard work and care little for most humor. They enjoy beer, ale, mead, but most of all, they love gold. The destiny of our hero was to become a great fighter, the Dwarven Defender. A formidable warrior that is reputed to be worth 2 soldiers of any other race. A handful of these stout fighters can render a defensive line all but unbreakable. The hero had little use for laws and regulations. His actions were guided only by his own moral compasses. He spent his entire childhood perfecting himself, over and over again, repeating exercises, reading books, over and over again, over and 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 again, over and over and over. I said it's over! Thank you! Until he reached the state in which we find him in our story. During his combat training, the hero favored axes and shields. He was quite good with these weapons, though he had room to grow. And what dwarf wouldn't know how to use a warhammer at least a little? Of the few passers-by that you could meet on the streets of the city, our hero practically did not stand out, although he preferred to accentuate some elements of his clothes with a bright red color. Also, one of the exercises was voice training. This exercise took a lot of time and usually went like this.
Ha! Death comes for you!
Batter them into bloody rubbish! Ah!
You might ask, what about our hero's name? And I can finally answer that question for you. His name was Ronhul, and this is the beginning of his fascinating magical and, normal? Yes, seems right. Normal story.
Nestled atop the cliffs that rise from the Sword Coast, the citadel of Candlekeep houses the finest and most comprehensive collection of writings on the face of Faerun. It is an imposing fortress, kept in strict isolation from the intrigues that occasionally plague the rest of the Forgotten Realms. It is secluded, highly regimented, and it is home. Within these hallowed halls of knowledge, your story begins. You have spent most of your 20 years of life within this keep's austere walls, under the tutelage of the sage Gorion. Acting as your father, He has raised you on 1,000 tales of heroes and monsters, lovers and infidels, battles and tragedies. However, one story was always left untold, that of your true heritage. You have been told that you are an orphan, but your past is largely unknown. Lately, Gorion has been growing distant from you, as if some grave matter weighs heavily on his heart. You have asked about his concerns as gently as possible, but your queries have been in vain. Your sole comfort is the knowledge that he is a wise man, and you know he will tell you when the time is right. Nonetheless, his silence is troubling, and you cannot help but feel that something is terribly wrong. Today, Gorion has appeared more agitated than ever, and now he has uncharacteristically interrupted your chores in the middle of the day, imparting hurried instructions for you to equip yourself for travel. He has handed you what gold he can spare, but given no clue as to why. Nevertheless, you now stand before the Candlekeep Inn, ready to purchase what you need for an unplanned and unexpected journey.
Despite all the strange news, it was a normal sunny day. Ronhul felt that this journey was going to take a long time, so he decided to say goodbye to all his friends in town.
Hello there.
Hey! Have you seen my copy of the History of Halrua anywhere? Oh, I hate being so absent-minded. Please, if you find it, I really do need it back.
Well, why not help the poor girl? Ronhul made a note in his journal and went on his way. There were cows in stalls nearby, and the dwarf felt an irresistible urge to go up to them and pet them to say goodbye. So he did, recalling with fear that terrifying incident with the cows. In the distance stood one of the dwarf's closest mentors, and with a heavy heart, the hero decided to say goodbye to him, for some reason ignoring the other mentors he had met on the street.
Hello, child. Shall we continue your lessons?
The conversation didn't go well.
Have we been at this all night?
Oh, goody, goody. I've gone and found ye first. You are the ward of Gorion, no doubt?
Definitely people in this town don't make much of an effort to lock their doors, thought our hero. But he needed to find out what was going on.
Who I am is unimportant, but who you are is very much so. I apologize for this dirty bit of business, but I must seek your death.
With surprise on his face after somewhat clumsily exchanging blows, Ronhul found himself standing over the body of this brigand. What did he want? The small dagger slid over to the would-be traveler's backpack, and the dwarf decided to look around the room. Go! People are watching! This man had an exceptionally cunning plan: to wait for a victim in a random cabin within the town, hoping that someone would stumble in. How on earth did he predict that a dwarf in search of gold would enter any place that was open? Very clever indeed. So mused our hero, almost automatically, as he searched all surfaces and drawers. The room was mostly empty. Ronhul found only a few coins on the table, a rather old and simple war hammer in a wooden box against the opposite wall, and a locked chest that could not be broken into. Before heading back outside, it was wise to double-check the gear and test the hammer he had found. Moving things from one place to another was a secret ritual among the dwarves, believed to attract good fortune.
If you say so.
On the street, Harder was steadily approaching the hero.
Ronhul, you cut yourself above the brow there. What is wrong, child? Something in your eyes tells me that something is very wrong indeed.
But he was all right.
Yes, well, get what you need from the inn then.
Dreppen hailed the hero from the sidelines.
What do you need?
Flydia left one of her books in here again. It's in the hay. There, beside the cow. If you could run it over to her and then come back, I've got some plans for you.
Accustomed to running errands, Ronhul slipped the book into his backpack and set off without hesitation. As the dwarf passed by the local temple, he pondered, as he often did, why the four pillars stood without a roof. This unspoken question hung in the air, never addressed by anyone.
Hey,
Hey there, Ronhul. I see you're up early this day. Your father, Gorian, has asked me a strange favor. Seems like he wants you to learn some fighting. So, I hope you brought your staff with you. He also requested that I describe to you how a game mirroring your adventures would appear on a computer screen. Fear not, for in a few millennia, in a realm far from here, you shall grasp my meaning. Are you ready now?
The dwarf sensed the stillness of time around him, seizing the moment to strategize his next move.
You did good, kid. You should go talk to the gate warden if you want some experience in fighting with a group of people. Out there, it can be pretty important to know how to fight with allies at your side.
And they just turned their backs on the battlefield and walked away.
By Moradin's hammer!
I thought I asked you to clean the rats. Hop to it.
With no alternatives, our hero resignedly followed Reaver's instructions and approached the house swarming with sinister rats. These creatures, bold in their evil, initiated the attack, undeterred by the two cats in the warehouse who seemed to share a silent truce with the rodents, as evidenced by their mutual indifference.
No problem.
The peculiarity of the place was palpable, heightened by the recent disappearance of two individuals the dwarf had just bested in a street brawl. They had entered this very building and vanished without a trace. While the city's mysteries demanded Ronhul's attention, the wise Gorian awaited him, compelling him to temporarily set aside the puzzle. For reasons unknown, his legs seemed reluctant to comply. Yet Ronhul was determined to leave no corner unchecked. He was intent on uncovering every fragment of gold, no matter how small, overwhelmed by the battle and upset that he found no gold. The dwarf tumbled onto the street, completely forgetting that he had to inform Reaver that the rats had been destroyed. Reaver, in turn, standing by the warehouse, apparently not for the first day, had become so accustomed to it that he no longer paid attention to anything.
Hey, kid. I woke late this morning and left my sword in the barracks. You'll also find an antidote there. I think Dreppen needs one for old Nessa.
This was interesting information. Now it's clear why Dreppen wanted the dwarf to return. However, it's not very clear why it was necessary to deliver the book first. Another unsolved mystery of Candlekeep.
Soon be gone, will ye? Aye. Gorian asked me to teach you a wit about the finer arts of mass combat afore ye leave.
But the hero didn't need it.
Are ye sure, little one? Gorian himself asked me to do this deed, and I'll not offer it to ye twice.
After a moment's hesitation, the hero decided to agree.
Good then, child. I've asked Obi the illusionist to run through a few simulations for ye down in the storage cellars. Just follow me this way, and I'll unlock the door for ye. There ye be, Ronhul. All you need to do is march in.
Inspired by the hope of finding gold at least here, the dwarf entered the open door.
Ronhul, the gate warden asked me to prepare a little going-away party for you. Well, I'll make it real simple for you. I'm going to summon in several illusions of common monsters you might encounter outside the safety. They won't be able to hurt you. Try your best to kill them, however. Every so often, I'll ask if you've had enough. Then I shall teleport you back outside. Are you ready then? Good. Here we go.
The familiar sensation of time's ebb and flow once again enveloped Ronhul. Yet this instance bore a novel distinction. The dwarf's mind resonated with the palpable bonds tethering him to his willing comrades. These ethereal threads hummed with the silent anticipation of commands. Seizing this moment, Ronhul surveyed his allies' gear, gauged the potency of their incantations, and orchestrated their next moves. Though aware the skirmish was but a drill, our hero embraced the gravity of leadership, eager to experience the orchestration of command. With the strategic blueprint etched in his mind, Ronhul restored time's cadence to its customary rhythm. The squad, executing his stratagem with precision, vanquished the spectral adversaries with such swiftness, it was akin to a dance. A ballet of magic and steel. As the last monster poofed away, Ronhul's loot reflex kicked in, but Obi noted the endgame first.
Hey.
Have you had enough yet? If you're to go, I'll teleport you back outside. Otherwise, you better be ready for some more fighting.
The dwarf's desire to scour the room was so great that he resorted to pretending he and his squad were still battling monsters. And it worked. Obi nonchalantly went about his business, but not for a long time.
Have you had enough yet?
Engrossed in searching the containers, Ronhul simply brushed it off with the same phrase, and it worked again. The outcome was so unexpected that Ronhul wondered if Obi had been hit by a mind-fogging spell during their mock battle. The locked chest found in the corner easily yielded to the skilled hands of the rogue from the temporary party, revealing its pristine emptiness without a hint of any treasures. The oppressive emptiness of boxes, barrels, and even locked chests made the dwarf think that the idea of traveling anywhere sounded better and better. Who in their right mind locks empty chests?
Orders?
It seems that there is nothing of value left in this town.
Have you had enough yet?
The voice of Obi, cutting through the silence once again, brought Ronhul back from his thoughts to reality. It was time to leave.
Wisdom is only possessed by the learned.
Teleportation through space always left one slightly bewildered. Therefore, at first, the dwarf did not even understand where to go. But quickly orienting himself, he continued down the street, memorizing every pebble of his native town. In order to remember all the details, Ronhul peered into every suspicious barrel with the unquenchable hope of finding something memorable.
I have a blade with your name on it.
There. You're Gorian's little whelp, aren't ya? Yeah. You match the description. You don't look so dangerous to me.
Why was he asking?
I'll make it my business if'n I please. Just thought I'd have me a look at you for myself before I puts a blade down your gullet. Someone seems to think you're trouble, so I'm gonna use your head for a ticket out o' the gutter. I'm just a little street trash hood, they say, but I'll show 'em.
But he did not show. It was becoming suspicious. One assassin sent his way was still manageable. But a second bounty hunter in one day was too much. Maybe that's why Gorian wanted to leave? Sensing something was wrong, Ronhul checked his hammer. And indeed, it was broken. Meanwhile, on the street, Another mentor wanted to talk, noticing the signs of a fight. Ronhul tried to avoid the conversation as much as he could.
I heard shouting, Ronhul. Are you all right?
And why do they always ask?
Oh, child, you are too young for the life that is being thrust upon you.
Lost in gloom, Ronhul peeked into the barrel, pocketing the gold mechanically, and trudged on, recalling where the barracks door is. Round done, and the dwarf found it nearby.
Yeah, sure.
What a mead-filled night. That hole is just too much. Poor Sap had to go man the gate this morning too. I don't know how he does it. What can I do for you anyways?
The dwarf wasn't pleased with extra witnesses, so he pretended to just wander without reason.
Don't think I'm not keeping my eye on you.
Since childhood, our hero longed to rummage through the chests in the barracks. But someone was always there, as now. Opting for a compromise and resisting smashing the chests, Ronhul took a sword and antidote from Hull's chest, checked the other locks, and dashed outside. Now Ronhul stood before a choice: to visit the cows, to which he had a certain fondness, or to deliver the sword to the guard. Having estimated the distances, weighed the bag, and thought about that terrifying incident with those animals, it was decided to go to the gatekeeper first.
Here's 10 gold pieces. Now get out of here. I'm on duty.
Well then, gratitude wasn't really needed. The gleam of 10 gold coins was enough to make the dwarf forget about Hull's sharp retort, as well as the fact that Reaver, not so far away, was still waiting for him, staring blankly into space and pondering what could be done with a warehouse full of rats. Gold, gold, goldy gold, my precious gold treasure, wealth, goldy gold, I'll find y'all my goldy little gold, hummed the dwarf, tossing a coin into the air, and finally heading to the inn to buy supplies for the journey. The old inn of Candlekeep, a place of daily gatherings for the entire town, a source of stories from all over the world. For Ronhul, it had always been a window to the open world, and it was time to accept his fate. Ronhul entered the door. As usual, Winthrop stood behind the counter with his excellent jokes.
My hotel's as clean as an elven arse.
Well, hello there, young one. Don't forget 10,000 gold piece book entrance fee.
Similar jokes, repeating from time to time, greeted all the guests of the inn.
Ha! Just having a bit of fun with ye, my friend. Some drinks, a room to sleep, or anything to buy.
In his rugged, well-worn bag, Ronhul carried a few precious items destined for sale. His wallet, plump with the weight of coins, granted him the luxury of choice among Winthrop's fine selection of battle axes. Each axe gleamed with the promise of dwarven craftsmanship. Ronhul, with an eye for quality, handpicked several axes, their blades balanced and edges sharp enough to split a hair, though he surveyed Winthrop's array of bladed weapons, from slender swords to wicked daggers. None caught his fancy. After all, dwarves favored the heft and swing of an axe over the quick thrust of a blade. After finishing, the dwarf noticed an old man standing in the hall.
Ah, yes. I'm back within the hallowed halls of Candlekeep. With this iron crisis upon us, the trip from Beregost was more hazardous than I care to relate. You're Gorian's ward, aren't you? My, you have come into your own, if you would permit an old man jealous of youth to say so. I left an identify scroll with Tetheril in the inner grounds. He should be done examining it by now. So if you could fetch it for me, I'd be grateful.
Finally, Another important assignment from a person he barely remembered from childhood. The dwarf didn't even consider whether this was another assassin sent his way, because such tasks always filled the dwarf's life with meaning. Equipping the newly purchased axes, Ronhul set off for the scroll. The inner grounds always fascinated Ronhul, and most often among the well-kept flower beds wandered local scholars and librarians. And sometimes it was very difficult to tell whether it was another high-minded conversation, or after all, another brain-destroying spell had been unsuccessfully cast. And here these apparently magicians paid no attention to the dwarf, and no one can say exactly why.
Greetings,
Firebead has sent you to me? Return this scroll to him, and you must speak with Gorian. I assure you, child, it is a matter of greatest urgency.
Ronhul never understood those scientists. For them, it was normal to spend twice as much time talking with a messenger instead of taking a minute to deliver the scroll themselves. And why the hell everyone in this city knew what was happening, and why our hero had to leave the city, while Ronhul had no idea. So many questions.
I am glad to see that age has not hardened your heart towards an old man. I'll take all of your identify scrolls. Here, allow me to cast a little spell on you. It will protect you from any evil you might meet tonight.
A great exchange of scrolls for a spell that will soon disappear.
My hotel's as clean as an elven arse.
The absence of the usual weight in his left hand, the feeling of wind in his hair, and the overall lightness in his body were troubling Ronhul. The dwarf decided to fix this simply by buying a shield, helmet, and armor from Winthrop. Having put on all his purchases, our hero decided that now was the perfect moment to take a break and rest in the inn. Something suggested that it might turn out that there would be no more opportunities to sleep in a regular bed. The day's events had so disconcerted Ronhul that the idea of going home to sleep did not even come to his mind. After all, our hero had a home in Candlekeep, right?
Yep.
Having slept well and now dressed in new, clean gear, the dwarf was fully prepared for the journey. Sighing, Ronhul set off to meet Gorian, who, it seemed, had been standing on the library steps since the previous day, waiting while his charge roamed the town and rested.
Hey, it's me, Emmoin.
I'm surprised that stuffy old Gorian let you away from your studies and chores. That old fiddle-faddle, I snuck off too. Old Puffguts Winthrop was looking for me, but I've got all day to do his chores. You have time for a story today? No, I can tell you don't. What have you been up to?
The girl was agile and independent beyond her years, but Ronhul considered himself more mature and stronger. As any dwarf, that's why our hero immediately told Emoen, the little one, that he was very busy.
Little one, I'm not much younger than you, though you sure got tall fast. A journey, eh? I never get to travel. Wish I could go with ya. Yep, I really wish I could.
The dwarf was happy to ask Gorian.
Oh, don't be silly. Gorian would never even let you finish the sentence, especially after what that letter of his said. Oh, did I say that? You had better go. Gorian is waiting.
Oh, my child, I am glad I have found you.
This is very unnerving, I know, but you must trust me. Hurry, for there is not time to tarry. The keep is well protected, but not invulnerable. But could Gorian say where they were going? Alas, I cannot, for I have not truly decided yet. All that is certain is that we will be far safer on the move. Perhaps the woods might offer some secluded security. Or perhaps the city of Baldur's Gate would offer cover amidst its teeming throngs of people. I do not know where we shall end up, but I have a few friends here and there. I will think on this. Having finally realized the gravity of the situation, Ronhul remembered the townspeople whose tasks he had not yet completed. Asking Gorian to wait a moment, the dwarf hurried to finish his pending tasks. After reviewing his notes and searching through the bag, Ronhul discovered a few items that unmistakably belonged to the town folks. Among them was Flydia's book. So the dwarf knew his first course of action was clear. He must return this book to its rightful owner, Flydia, without delay.
Hello there.
My book? Oh, you remind me of Gorian when you grin like that. You must be a very special child indeed. Here, take this little gem of mine. Maybe Winthrop will give you a little something for it.
Not believing his ears at first, the dwarf even climbed into his bag to check, wondering if he had indeed been given a genuine precious stone. It turned out he had. Shocked by such success, Ronhul, forgetting everything in the world, instinctively headed back to Gorian. Once again wanting to check if the precious stone was in its place, our hero accidentally grabbed his journal with notes. Reading it on the go, Ronhul realized Reavor. He had completely forgotten about Reavor and his warehouse full of rats. As the weather started to turn bad, Gorian looked at the dwarf with impatience and inquiry, waiting for him to be ready. However, Ronhul could not yet leave his affairs in such a state. After asking Gorian with a pleading gesture to wait a bit longer, the dwarf hurried to the warehouse.
By Moradin's hammer!
Yes. Kill them like the rats that they are. Here's 5 gold pieces. Don't spend it all in one place.
Admittedly, the 5 gold coins were worth it. With an abstract threat looming from outside, the whole city was in turmoil, and assassins lurked in homes. Yet, astonishingly, a report about killed rats took precedence.
You must learn to be patient, child. Listen carefully. If we ever become separated, it is imperative that you make your way to the Friendly Arm Inn. There you will meet Khalid and Jahira. They have long been my friends, and you can trust them. Let's hurry, child. The night can only get worse, so we must find shelter soon. Don't worry. I will explain everything as soon as there is time. Wait, there is something wrong. We are in an ambush. Prepare yourself.
You're perceptive for an old man. You know why I'm here. Hand over your ward and no one will be hurt. If you resist, it shall be a waste of your life.
You're a fool if you believe I would trust your benevolence. Step aside and you and your lackeys will be unhurt.
I'm sorry that you feel that way, old man.
Ow!
Get out of here!
Especially cruel this morning. You awake with the realization that you have not been living some horrible dream. Ambushed, you saw Gorian cut down before your eyes, and even his powerful magic could not stop the onslaught. It was his wish that you flee, but that does not remove the feeling of helplessness that now overwhelms you. Hand over your ward, the armored fiend had said. He was after you and you alone, but why? If only Gorion had given some clue. But now you are alone and lost. Candlekeep is near, but you will find no quarter there. The readers pay for their serenity with rather draconian entry rules, and without Gorion's influence, their doors will remain closed. You will not last long on your own with your meager equipment. Perhaps you can get some help from the friends Gorion mentioned, the ones at the Friendly Arm.
Hey, it's me, Emmoen.
Sorry, I followed ya, but I never get out of Candlekeep, and those monks are such a bore. I saw Gorion, and I am so sorry. Kind of figured something bad might happen to you out here.
Why was everyone aware of what was happening?
I accidentally read a letter on his desk the other day. Can't remember exactly what it said, but he might still have. It might be on this, his body. Anyway, I'm not gonna let you wander around out here all alone.
Yep. No matter the difficulty, returning to the battlefield was imperative. Foremost, the letter that promised to unravel the mysteries awaited there, and perhaps it would shed light on who sought Gorion's demise. Among the trees, circles of stones were already becoming visible near which everything had happened. The ground between the stones was scorched by a whirlwind of spells that had swept through here during the night. Ronhul and Emmoen walked around the clearing, searching through the piles of ash, which not so long ago had been people. In silence, the heroes collected what remained intact after the battle. The weight of the recent events hung heavy as they wordlessly sorted and stowed the items in their bags. His hands barely obeyed him. What had transpired for his childhood home to become the world's most perilous place? How had Gorion, the man he held dearest, succumbed to death? But Ronhul harbored a sense of preparedness. Gorion had after all been equipping him for this very day throughout his life. Ronhul, examining a belt retrieved from the ashes, sought to discern its unique qualities. Yet its secrets eluded him, compelling a deferment of discovery to a more opportune time. Emmoen had to don the leather armor also found in the clearing. There wasn't much to choose from, and as our heroes expected, they found that very letter to Gorion. My friend Gorion, please forgive the abruptness with which I now write. But time is short, and there is much to be done. What we have long feared may soon come to pass, though not in the manner foretold, and certainly not in the proper time frame. As we both know, forecasting these events has proved increasingly difficult, leaving little option other than a leap of faith. We have done what we can for those in thy care, but the time nears when we must step back and let matters take what course they will. We have perhaps been a touch too sheltering to this point. Despite my desire to remain neutral in this matter, I could not in good conscience let events proceed without some measure of warning. The other side will move very soon, and I urge thee to leave Candlekeep this very night if possible. The darkness may seem equally threatening, but a moving target is much harder to hit regardless of how sparse the cover. A fighting chance is all that can be asked for at this point. Should anything go awry, do not hesitate to seek aid from travelers along the way. I do not need to remind thee that it is a dangerous land, even without our current concerns, and a party is stronger than an individual in all respects. Should additional assistance be required, I understand that Jaheira and Khalid are currently at the Friendly Arm Inn. They know little of what has passed, but they are ever thy friends, and will no doubt help however they can. Luck be with us all. I'm getting too old for this. E. So Gorian knew that this moment would come. That's why all the preparations and training were necessary. The letter left many questions unanswered. Who is he? What is the other side? Are these the ones who attacked Gorian? It seemed that there were far more questions than before. Imoen walked alongside, glancing at the dwarf. She didn't dare to ask anything. The letter concerned him, not her, so she wasn't worried that much. Despite everything, the letter provided a clear directive. They needed to move to the Friendly Arm Inn to meet with Gorian's unknown friends. The Friendly Arm Inn was to the north, nestled beyond the wild lands, prompting the travelers to make a prudent detour through the town of Beregost. Another clearing in the forest revealed the grim sight of a dead creature's skeleton, its bones arranged as if still standing, a silent sentinel in the grass. The skeleton suddenly lunged at the heroes with a ghastly howl. Yet even in this chaos, Gorian's training proved its worth. A series of calculated strikes from behind the shield coupled with a barrage of arrows from Imoen swiftly did their job. Above the trees, the towers of a castle loomed. Moving towards the heroes and striving to remain in the shadow of the trees, a strange figure advanced.
Whoa, slow down. I'm trying to plan the grandest of heists here. With all your tromping about, I can't hear a word I'm thinking.
But what kind of plan was it?
Okay, here's the plan. There's a big-time mage living just over that rise. Magic items scattered all over the place. I'm betting. Trouble is, he's got these two hideous flesh monsters guarding him, and no shadows where I can lurk. Brute force is useless against the monsters. Ah, hell. I guess I'd be better off just finding a halfling village somewhere to pick on. This dive is all yours.
Exchanging glances, the astonished heroes shook their heads in disbelief. What were the chances of encountering a bandit in the forest who would divulge his plan to rob a powerful mage, only to renounce it and then reveal his next move? The giant spider no longer surprised the heroes. Dispatching the creature had become almost routine for them.
Ow!
It was the cabin, seemingly guarded by the insect, that caught the dwarf by surprise. Compelled by a sense of duty, the heroes entered the building to check if anyone needed assistance. Upon glimpsing the chest within, a spark ignited in the dwarf's mind. The echoes of his ancestors in his consciousness bellowed. Search for gold. Yet, in a twist of fate, the chest was firmly locked, as if to mock his aspirations. Imoen, with genuine earnestness, endeavored to assist the dwarf, whose gaze was alight with the flames of greed. Yet, even with her vast expertise in relieving Candlekeep's denizens of their valuables, she met her match in the lock's intricate mechanism. Recognizing this slight setback, it was time to proceed. Imoen found herself nearly escorting the dwarf by the arm, guiding him away from the stubborn chest in the hut. And right outside, a gnoll sprang toward the adventurers. Their trek across these lands promised to be fraught with peril. Overcome with frustration and leaving the chest in the hut untouched, the dwarf channeled his ire into a devastating strike. His hammer met the knoll with such might that the creature was slain instantly. The forests in these lands were so similar that one could easily get lost within them. Generally, it was intriguing to search for something captivating, especially after learning about the mysterious castle of the powerful wizard, which had greatly heightened the journey's expectations. Yet, after several hours of wandering through the woods, the only results were wasted time and a few startled rabbits. It was apparent that the heroes were novices at journeying. They meandered in loops. The thicket wasn't overly dense, yet the group had deviated slightly off course. The underlying reason remained ambiguous. Was it a subconscious yearning to compensate for the missed treasures in the unexplored chest? Or maybe an ill-timed desire to traverse every clearing within the woods? The landscape here was imbued with a certain natural magic that responded sensitively to the presence of living beings. When Ronhul realized they had taken a wrong turn and discerned the correct path, the heroes promptly redirected their course towards the glorious city of Beregost. But fate was not on their side. It was already too late. The magic had been disturbed, and a skeleton was standing straight in wait for the heroes at their previous location. The opponent was formidable, each blow either whistling through empty air or clanging against the skeleton's shield. The dwarf weathered several punishing hits to his torso and head. Gasping for breath, he quaffed a healing potion, the warm glow of recovery washing over him as he stood victorious. The squad pressed forward, the dense forest canopy swallowing them whole as they traced a path meant for Beregost. But in reality, it led them to a situation where I have no idea how to further explain their senseless wanderings through this part of the forest. I have no choice but to list the obvious things surrounding our heroes. Another ordinary tree. Oh, there are flowers here. Well, maybe they will at least find some mushrooms? Okay, back to our story. After taking another turn, the squad emerged into a clearing before the castle of the very mage the robber had mentioned. Despite the apparent futility of the idea, the heroes proceeded to enter through the door. Inside, something incomprehensible and magical was clearly taking place. Someone might have exclaimed, "Collider!" but not our heroes. They walked around the hall in amazement, where basic elements were drawn on the floor. The house owner, too, was in the hall, silently observing the actions of his unexpected guests.
I be Palantir, a mighty mage of Beregost.
I don't have much patience for strangers on my property.
Most likely, this smug magician will only communicate with those who possess magical abilities. Bearing in mind the bandits' promises of magical items littered throughout, Ronhul and Imoen decided to explore the entire building. A flesh monster merely lingered in the corridor, showing no sign of aggression. The scene did not resemble the description given by the unfortunate robber. Regrettably, the heroes were not prepared to investigate the intricacies of the building's arrangement. The mage's castle, rising in the midst of the forest, evidently drew the attention of not just robbers, but also monsters, as a band of gnolls launched an assault on the heroes. Imoen took cover in a nearby grove, while the dwarf boldly charged straight into the monsters, plowing through their ranks. Ronhul swiftly assumed a defensive stance, his hammer a blur. His shield parried the onslaught of gnoll attacks. In a fluid motion, he found openings for precise counter-strikes, hitting his adversaries again and again. The dwarf's hammer swung with deadly precision, felling the gnoll in a single decisive blow. As it lay motionless, Ronhul's voice pierced the chaos, calling to Imoen for a healing potion. His reserves depleted in the skeletal skirmish. He urgently needed replenishment. With agile grace, Imoen lobbed 2 vials towards him. Shielding himself, Ronhul snatched them from the air and quaffed one hastily. The motion caught the gnoll's eyes, and with a howl, they surged towards the grove, intent on silencing the hidden archer. Forced from her cover by the intruding gnoll, Imoen darted through the grove, desperate to evade capture. The dwarf, seizing the moment, delivered a punishing blow to another assailant's back, drawing its attention. Run! Ronhul bellowed to the archer, his jaw set in determination as he turned to his own foe. When the dwarf knocked out his opponent, the chase began. Imoen fled from the gnoll, and Ronhul, hammer in hand, pursued the gnoll. The monster, slow and dim-witted, was always one step behind the agile archer, oblivious to the futility of his pursuit. Meanwhile, the dwarf, though not swift, seized the opportunity to deliver punishing blows to the monster's back, ensuring the hero's triumph. The last monster collapsed onto the grass, allowing Imoen to finally stop and catch her breath after the intense chase. Meanwhile, the dwarf circled the bodies, gathering any valuables they possessed. Advancing towards Beregost, the party sought refuge beneath the tree's canopy to escape the onset of rain. As they skirted the mage's castle, Ronhul gently tapped Imoen's shoulder and gestured towards a dark figure seeking shelter under a large tree, presumably from the rain as well.
Hail! It is not often that I come across strangers in this part of the world.
What foolishness takes city dwellers this far from civilization?
A bit rough, but they were just traveling.
A strange coincidence. I have a quest similar to your own. I have been hunting the bandits in the region for the past few months. Perhaps if we work together, we would fare better. What say you to that?
He dedicated few months to such scum. But why?
Their leader, an ogre named Tazok, took the life of someone very dear to me.
It was a rather noble goal, and overall the idea of collaborating with a person whom they had met in the middle of the forest in pouring rain and with whom they had exchanged only a couple of phrases sounded great. Having sealed the agreement with a handshake, Ronhul immediately inspected the equipment of the new party member for any trace of gold. Whether the bandits Kievan had been hunting were not very successful, or Kievan knew what to expect from the dwarf, the valiant gold enthusiast found not a hint of the shiny metal. Ahead of them lay Beregost. As Ronhul examined the map, his gaze was drawn to the image of the immense city of Baldur's Gate. The idea that a creation could bear the name Baldur's Gate not once, but thrice and still flourish seemed unfathomable. Surely, only high-order magic could accomplish such a wonder. So, these were the streets of Beregost. The very first door captivated the travelers, and they allowed themselves a few seconds to admire it. The journey had taken quite a toll on the party. Their first act was to seek an inn for rest. The town streets lay deserted, yet they confidently approached one of the largest buildings. Their instincts were correct. It was indeed an inn, and within, Another challenge awaited them.
Here now, get out. I don't like your type in here.
You tell him, Marl.
That was unusual.
Hey, I told you to get lost. Ain't no room here for ye troublemaking strangers.
It looked like getting all bent out of a shape a little.
Hey, I take whatever shape I want. I'm sick of you freakish adventurers going out, consorting with gods know what, and dragging your trouble back into my hometown. What do you say to that?
Hero's intention was to solve the troubles, not to cause them. Not every time, though.
Oh, you think it's funny, do you? You mess up the local economy with your treasure. You upset the balance of nature. You flash your magic around. And because of it, maybe somebody's son thinks it's fun and goes out and gets himself killed. It's a bad example, and somebody ought to kick your ass for it.
Everyone has their own path, and Marl should not have put the blame on the first people he meets.
He was a good boy, till your kind came through the town. Filled his head with nonsense they did, and because of it he's dead. Now, why shouldn't I take that out of your hide?
Ronhul asked Marl with sadness. What would have happened if his son had not been inspired by those adventurers? Would he not have left anyway? It's a calling. You are born with it. No one can give it to you.
'Tain't true. He was going to take over the farm and settle down. Maybe apprentice with Thunderhammer during the winter. He never wanted to adventure.
That was what you wanted, Marl. Fun's fun. But you're blaming these folk for what couldn't be helped. That boy was a firebrand, if ever there was.
No, he was settling down. He wanted.
That new plow ye bought last year. He got the gold by helping clear kobolds near Olgoth's beard. He wanted to make a difference, make the realms a bit safer. Just like these folk most likely.
By Chauntea, why couldn't he just stay home?
Sometime the realms just call you, and you go, Ronhul suggested. Even fine lads could be taken too soon, and to toast that lad's memory with everybody. Heroes wanted to buy a round for all the folk in the inn.
'Twould be fitting, I suppose, to Canair Nethelin. Rest ye well. I would be alone a while.
Well, 'tis the calmest I'd done seen him in a week. Still, best you move along. Marl ain't known for his steady moods.
Indeed, not all battles are to be won on the battlefield, weapons in hand. Some, far graver than others, unfold in warm and cozy halls like this inn, brimming with jovial folk.
Do you mind?
Often these conflicts inflict wounds deeper than any sword or axe could. With such thoughts, our heroes navigated the hall, exchanging brief words here and there before approaching the bar to inquire about available rooms.
I got some cheap beer for you.
After selling everything they had acquired in battles in the forest and receiving a handful of coins, the heroes went upstairs to restore their strength before the next day, full of battles and adventures. As always. gather round, ye seekers of arcane truths and mystical tales. I beseech thee, grant thy favor upon this tome with a like, and share the chronicles of our journey far and wide. To continue thy quest for knowledge and the fantastical, subscribe to this channel of wonders.